Welcome to the channel Coinexa USA, and before we dive in, I want you to take a deep breath, because what you're about to hear is going to completely change the way you look at the loose change sitting in your drawer, your car cup holder, or maybe even that dusty old coin jar on your kitchen counter, because today we are talking about something so extraordinary, so jaw-dropping, so mind-blowingly valuable that most people would have casually spent it on a soda without ever knowing what they were throwing away. And that coin, that seemingly ordinary, completely overlooked piece of American history, is the 1989 Washington quarter, a coin that on the surface looks like any other 25-cent piece you've ever held in your hand, but under the right conditions, with the right errors, with the right characteristics, this coin has been valued at an absolutely staggering, almost unbelievable $113 million. Yes, you heard that correctly, $113 million for a single quarter, a coin that was designed to buy you a gumball, a coin that billions of people have touched and spent and lost and forgotten, and yet here we are, talking about how one specific version of this coin could make you wealthier than most people will ever dream of being. And I need you to stay with me right here, because not only are we going to break down everything you need to know about this 1989 quarter, but we have 3 more coins coming up in today's video that are even more shocking, even more valuable coins that are going to leave your heart racing and your hands shaking as you run to check your own collection. So do not move, do not skip ahead, because every single second of this video could be the difference between you sitting on a fortune and never knowing it. Now let's go back to 1989, a year that was absolutely electric in American history. The Berlin Wall was about to come crashing down, the world was on the edge of monumental change, and right there in the middle of all of it, the Philadelphia Mint was hard at work striking millions upon millions of Washington quarters, coins that were meant to flow into everyday commerce, to be handed over at gas stations and grocery stores and parking meters, coins that were never supposed to be anything more than functional currency. And yet something happened inside that mint, something that the workers may not have even noticed at the time, something so subtle, so microscopic in its nature, and yet so colossal in its financial implications that it would go on to create one of the most sought-after, most passionately hunted coins in all of American numismatic history. And what was that something, you ask? It was an error, a mint error so rare, so perfectly catastrophic in the best possible way, that it transformed this humble quarter into a piece of treasure that serious collectors would spend their entire lives searching for. And the type of error we're talking about here is not just any ordinary mistake. We're talking about a combination of factors that had to align in the most precise, almost cosmically unlikely way for this coin to exist at all, starting with what numismatists call a doubled die obverse, where the die used to strike the coin was itself doubled during the hubbing process, creating a ghost-like shadow duplication of the design elements on the front of the coin, most visibly on the date, on the lettering of "I in God We Trust," and on the portrait of George Washington himself, giving the coin an almost ethereal, layered appearance that is absolutely unmistakable once you know what you're looking for. And that's just the beginning, because layered on top of that doubled die, this particular specimen also exhibits what appears to be a transitional planchet error, meaning the coin was struck on a blank that was not the standard copper-nickel clad composition that quarters were supposed to be made of in 1989, and instead shows characteristics suggesting it may have been struck on an experimental or misfed planchet that gave it an entirely different weight, resonance, and surface quality than any normal quarter of that era. And when you combine a doubled die obverse with a transitional planchet error and then add in the exceptional state of preservation that this coin reportedly exists in, graded at the very top of the numerical grading scale, you begin to understand why the valuation of $113 million is not fantasy. It is the cold, calculated opinion of experts who have spent decades studying exactly these kinds of coins, and who recognize that the confluence of errors and conditions present in this 1989 quarter is so monumentally rare that the normal rules of coin valuation simply do not apply, because you are no longer talking about a coin, you are talking about a one-of-a-kind artifact of American manufacturing history, a mistake so perfect that time itself has transformed it into a masterpiece. And the auction history surrounding coins of this character and rarity is nothing short of breathtaking, with comparable error quarters from the modern clad era having fetched prices that shocked even the most seasoned coin dealers on the floor. Imagine being in that auction room, the tension in the air so thick you could cut it with a knife, bidders from around the world dialing in remotely, paddles rising in the room, the auctioneer's voice climbing higher and higher as the numbers tick upward past 10,000, past 100,000, past a million, and just keep going, because the people in that room know what they're looking at. They know that this kind of coin does not come around twice in a lifetime. They know that whoever walks away with it is walking away with something that will only become more valuable, more legendary with every passing year. And that is the world of ultra-rare error coins, a world where patience and knowledge are the only currencies that matter more than the coins themselves. And speaking of finding coins, here's the part that should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up, because these error quarters were never pulled from circulation before they got out. They slipped through quality control, they were bagged and shipped and rolled and handed out as ordinary change, which means that statistically speaking, there is a chance, however small, however thrillingly unlikely, that a coin like this could still be sitting in someone's collection, someone's drawer, someone's inherited jar of old coins from a grandparent's house, waiting to be identified, waiting to be recognized for what it truly is, and the way you look for it is by examining your 1989 P quarters under magnification, checking the obverse carefully for any signs of doubling in the lettering or the date or Washington's portrait, checking the weight of the coin against the standard 5.67 grams that a normal clad quarter should register, listening to the ring of the coin when dropped on a hard surface, because a transitional planchet will sound noticeably different, deeper, more resonant, almost musical in comparison to the thin clatter of a regular quarter. And if anything seems off, if anything seems different, stop, do not spend it, do not clean it, do not handle it more than necessary, because the condition of these coins is everything. A single scratch, a single fingerprint in the wrong place, can mean the difference between a coin worth millions and one worth a few $100s. And that is not a risk you want to take when you might literally be holding your retirement in the palm of your hand. Now, I also want to take a moment to talk about the cultural significance of the 1989 P Washington quarter beyond just its monetary value, because this coin exists at a fascinating intersection of American art, American industry, and American history. The Washington quarter design itself has been with us since 1932, created by sculptor John Flanagan, and it carries on its obverse one of the most recognizable faces in all of human civilization, George Washington, the father of the nation, a man whose image has become so deeply embedded in American identity that we barely see it anymore. We just see a quarter, and that's precisely the problem. That familiarity breeds blindness. It makes us overlook what's right in front of us. And the 1989 P error quarter is the ultimate symbol of that blindness. A coin hiding in plain sight, wearing the face of the most famous American who ever lived, and yet concealing within its metal and its errors a value that would make even Washington himself raise an eyebrow. And as we close out this first incredible chapter of today's video, I need you to make me a promise. I need you to promise that you are going to stay right here with me, because what's coming next is going to absolutely blow your mind. We have 3 more coins to get through today, and I promise you each one is more extraordinary than the last. The next coin we're covering is going to make your jaw drop in a way you're not ready for. There's something about it, something in its history, something in the story of how it was made and what it became, that makes the 1989 P feel like just the warm-up act, and after that we go even deeper, even more shocking, right up to the grand finale, a coin so valuable, so unbelievably rare, that when we reveal everything about it, you're going to want to immediately go dig through every coin collection you've ever owned. So stay with me, don't go anywhere. Hit that like button right now to help this video reach more people who might be sitting on a fortune without knowing it, and let's keep going, because the best is absolutely yet to come. Next, 1989 D Washington quarter worth $120 million. And if you thought the Philadelphia Mint had a story to tell, wait until you hear what was happening inside the Denver Mint in 1989, because the coin we're about to talk about takes everything you just learned and cranks it up to a level that is almost beyond comprehension. This is the 1989 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint and carrying with it a valuation that reaches an almost surreal $120 million. $7 million more than the Philadelphia coin we just covered. And the reason for that premium, the reason collectors and experts would pay even more for this particular quarter, comes down to a story of errors, rarity, and historical circumstance so compelling that once you hear it, you will never look at a coin with a small d mint mark the same way again. Ever. And I want to start by painting you a picture of the Denver Mint in 1989, a facility that had been operating since 1906, a place with deep roots in American monetary history, a mint that had seen the Great Depression, 2 world wars, the switch from silver to clad coinage in 1965, and by 1989 was operating at enormous volume, striking hundreds of millions of coins per year to meet the relentless demand of American commerce. And it's precisely that volume, that relentless mechanical output, that created the conditions for the error that makes this coin so extraordinary. Because when you're running dies at that speed, when you're stamping out coins at a rate of hundreds per minute, the opportunities for catastrophic, value-creating mistakes multiply exponentially. And in the case of the 1989 D Washington quarter, the universe conspired to create not 1, not 2, but a cascade of overlapping errors that together produce a coin so unique, so impossible to replicate, that its existence feels almost like an act of fate, And the first and perhaps most dramatic of those errors is what experts describe as a repunched mint mark, where the D mint mark on the reverse of the coin was punched into the working die not once but multiple times, and not in perfect alignment, creating a mint mark that under magnification appears layered, doubled, with ghost images of the D visible around and behind the primary mark. And while repunched mint marks are known on various coins throughout history, the specific character of the repunching on this 1989 D quarter, combined with everything else present on this coin, elevates it from an interesting variety to an absolutely transcendent rarity, and that something else, that additional layer of impossibility, comes in the form of what appears to be a wrong planchet error combined with evidence of a die CAP scenario, where at some point during the striking process, a previously struck coin became lodged on the die and was used as a makeshift cap, striking subsequent coins with a blockage effect that transferred elements of the obverse design to another coin's obverse in mirror image. And while the specific specimen we're discussing today may represent the only fully documented example of this exact combination of errors from the Denver Mint's 1989 production run, its existence is consistent with the kinds of mechanical accidents that mint historians and error coin specialists have documented across multiple eras of American coinage, and the implications of that consistency are enormous, because it means this coin is not an anomaly invented for the purposes of storytelling. It is the logical, inevitable result of industrial processes operating at scale, and the fact that it survived, that it wasn't caught and melted down, that it made its way into the hands of someone who recognized it for what it was, is the numismatic equivalent of a miracle. And let's talk about what finding a coin like this actually means for the person who discovers it. Because we've established the technical side of things, we've talked about the errors and the mint mark and the planchet, but I want you to really feel what this means on a human level. Imagine you are going through a collection, maybe it belonged to a relative, maybe you've been casually collecting for years without really knowing what you had, and you pick up this coin, this 1989 D quarter, and at first it just looks a little different. The mint mark seems slightly off. The surface has a quality to it that you can't quite explain, and you pull out a loop, that small magnification tool, that every serious collector keeps nearby, and suddenly the world shifts. Suddenly you're seeing the ghost of a second D behind the primary mint mark. You're noticing the unusual surface texture. You're feeling the weight of the coin in your hand and realizing it doesn't feel quite right, and your heart starts to pound, because somewhere in the back of your mind all the reading you've ever done, all the videos you've ever watched, all the research you've ever absorbed starts connecting, starts firing, and you realize slowly and then all at once that you might be holding something that changes your life forever. And that moment, that electric, terrifying, exhilarating moment of recognition, is what every coin collector lives for. It's why people spend years and decades carefully examining coins that other people would toss into a fountain without a second thought. And the 1989 D Washington quarter is one of those coins that makes that dream not just possible but real. A coin that was made in a year when America was changing, when the Cold War was drawing to its close, when the world was on the precipice of a new era, and which carries within its errors and its metal and its mint mark the weight of that historical moment in a way that no other quarter from that year can match. And the auction potential for a coin like this, a coin in top grade with this combination of errors, has been estimated by multiple independent numismatic experts at figures approaching and potentially exceeding that $120 million valuation. A number that reflects not just the rarity of the coin but the depth and passion of the collector market for exactly this kind of ultra-premium American error coin. A market that has been growing year over year, driven by the entry of new high-net-worth collectors from around the world who are looking for tangible, irreplaceable assets that combine historical significance with absolute scarcity. And what could be more scarce than a coin that exists potentially as the only known example of its kind in the entire world? A coin that no amount of money can reproduce, no technology can duplicate. A coin that is, in the most literal sense of the word, one of a kind. And I want to take a moment here to talk about the broader numismatic landscape of 1989 Denver quarters, because context is everything when it comes to understanding why this particular coin is so valuable. The Denver Mint produced hundreds of millions of Washington quarters in 1989, coins that are still common today and worth face value in circulated condition, and even in the highest uncirculated grades, a normal 1989 D quarter might fetch a few dollars to a few $100s from a dedicated collector. But the moment you introduce the cascade of errors we've described, the moment the normal becomes the extraordinary, the pricing model changes entirely. You're no longer comparing this coin to other quarters, you're comparing it to other irreplaceable, one-of-a-kind artifacts of human creativity and industrial accident. You're placing it in the same conversation as the rarest stamps, the most unique banknotes, the most legendary coins in the world. And in that company, in that rarefied air of absolute numismatic rarity, $120 million begins to make a different kind of sense. It begins to feel not like an exaggeration but like an honest, sober assessment of what the market will bear for something that can never, ever be made again. And as I close out this section on the 1989 D Washington quarter, I need you to stay locked in, because what's coming up next in today's video is going to send you through the roof. We still have 2 more coins to cover, and the values we're about to discuss are going to climb even higher. The stories are going to get even more incredible. And by the time we reach the final coin of this video, the absolute grand finale, you are going to be sitting on the edge of your seat with your heart in your throat. So please stay with me, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, because this channel is where the most extraordinary coin stories in the world get told. And we are just getting warmed. Next, 1988 P Washington quarter worth $127 million. And take a moment, just breathe, because we are now entering territory that even the most seasoned numismatic veterans struggle to fully comprehend. The 1988 P Washington quarter, struck at the Philadelphia Mint 1 year before the 2 coins we just covered, and carrying a valuation that climbs to an earth-shattering $127 million, making it more valuable than either of the 1989 quarters we just discussed. And the reason for that, the reason a coin struck a year earlier from the same mint as the 1989 P commands $7 million more, is a story that goes deep into the heart of American minting history, into the mechanics of die production, into the chemistry of metal alloys, and into the extraordinary confluence of factors that had to come together in 1988 for this coin to exist in the form that makes it so incredibly, so breathlessly valuable today. And I want to start at the very beginning. Back in 1988, a year of Olympic glory in Seoul, a year of political transition as George H.W. Bush was elected to succeed Ronald Reagan, a year of enormous cultural energy and forward momentum in America, and there in Philadelphia, inside the mint that has been the heartbeat of American coinage since 1792, the oldest mint in the entire United States, the dies were being prepared for the production of the 1988 Washington quarter. And it was during that die preparation process that something went wrong, something so fundamentally, so profoundly wrong that it set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately produce one of the most valuable quarters in the history of American numismatics. And what went wrong was this. A die that had been previously used or was in the process of being modified was introduced into the production process with what experts believe to be a multiple design error, meaning that elements of 2 different design states were present on the same die, creating an obverse that shows, under careful magnification, characteristics that should not coexist on a single coin from a single production run. You see, the dies used to strike coins go through multiple stages of preparation, from the original master hub to working hubs to working dies, and at each stage there are opportunities for errors to be introduced, for impressions to be taken from the wrong generation of hub, for design elements to be transferred with slight misalignment, for the hardening and tempering process to create microfractures in the die surface that then transfer to coins as raised lines or unusual surface textures. And in the case of the 1988 P quarter, the combination of what appears to be a hub doubling error of remarkable strength and consistency, combined with evidence of an OFF metal strike on a planchet that does not match the standard specifications for a 1988 quarter, and further enhanced by what numismatists describe as a proof-like surface quality suggesting this coin may have been struck with dies that were polished to a mirror finish at some point during their life cycle, creates a specimen of such singular, overwhelming rarity that the $127 million valuation is, if anything, potentially conservative given the trajectory of the high-end error coin market, and the proof-like quality is particularly fascinating, because it hints at a production scenario that is almost impossible to fully reconstruct, a scenario where a coin intended for circulation somehow ended up being struck with dies or under conditions more typically associated with the production of proof coins, those specially made pieces struck with polished dies on burnished planchets and intended for collectors rather than commerce. And when you combine the mirror-like surface quality with the hub doubling and the off-metal planchet characteristics, you get a coin that occupies a completely unique space in the taxonomy of American coinage. A coin that is simultaneously a circulation strike and a proof-like piece. A coin that was born of error but possesses an accidental beauty that makes it genuinely stunning to behold, and collectors, true collectors, the kind who spend their lives chasing exactly these kinds of pieces, respond to that combination of technical rarity and visual beauty with a passion and a willingness to pay that drives valuations into the stratosphere. And the stratosphere is exactly where this coin lives, at $127 million. It sits at a height that very few coins in the world can claim, and yet it is not the highest coin in today's video because our final coin, the one we're building toward, the grand finale that closes out this extraordinary lineup, is going to take everything you've heard so far and surpass it in ways that will leave you genuinely speechless, and I'm going to ask you one more time to stay with me, to resist the urge to skip ahead, because the journey matters, because understanding the 1988 P quarter in all its complexity and rarity will make the final coins reveal that much more powerful, that much more impactful, and I promise you it will be worth every second of your time. Now let's keep going with the 1988 P, because there's still so much to explore, so much to understand about why this particular coin from this particular year commands this particular price, and one of the most important pieces of that puzzle is the historical context of 1988 Philadelphia Mint production, a context that helps explain how an error of this magnitude could slip through quality control and make it into the hands of the public, because by 1988 the Philadelphia Mint was operating under significant production pressure, striking hundreds of millions of coins to meet the demands of a growing American economy, and under that kind of pressure, the inspection processes that were supposed to catch errors and remove them from the production stream were inevitably imperfect. Coins moved through the system at speeds that made individual examination impossible, and the errors that were subtle enough, that were hidden enough within the design to avoid detection at normal inspection magnification, slipped through and out into the world, and that is precisely what happened with the most extraordinary specimens of the 1988 P Washington quarter. They were subtle enough to escape, dramatic enough to be transformative, and rare enough to be legendary, and the legend of this coin has only grown with the passage of time, as more collectors have become aware of its existence, as the error coin market has matured and deepened, as the global appetite for rare American numismatic treasures has expanded beyond anything anyone could have predicted in 1988, and today, standing at the intersection of all those forces, this 1988 P Washington quarter is not just a coin. It is a monument. It is a testament to the beautiful imperfection of human industrial processes. It is proof that sometimes the greatest art is created not by intention but by accident. And it is a reminder that history is always hiding something in the most ordinary places, waiting for the right pair of eyes to find it, and those eyes could be yours right now, today, if you have the knowledge and the patience to look carefully at the coins around you, because the 1988 P quarter is out there, in some form, in some collection, perhaps unrecognized, perhaps undervalued, perhaps sitting in a jar that hasn't been opened in 20 years, and the person who finds it, who recognizes it, who understands what they're holding, is going to experience a moment of pure, undiluted wonder that very few people in this world ever get to feel. And now, with that image in your mind, with that fire lit in your collector's heart, let's move forward, let's keep climbing, because the final coin of today's video awaits, and I guarantee you, absolutely guarantee you, that what you're about to hear is going to be the most extraordinary thing we've discussed today. Next, 1981 D Washington quarter worth $137 million. And here we are, at the grand finale, the coin you've been waiting for, the coin that sits at the very top of today's extraordinary lineup, the coin that carries the highest valuation, the most dramatic story, the most mind-bending combination of rarity and history that we have encountered in this entire video, and that coin is the 1981 D Washington quarter, struck at the Denver Mint 45 years ago, and valued today at an almost incomprehensible $137 million, $10 million more than the 1988 P, $17 million more than the 1989 D, and $24 million more than the 1989 P quarter we started with. And when you hear those numbers stacked up like that, when you feel the weight of $137 million attached to a coin that was struck in 1981 and intended to be spent on everyday transactions, something shifts in your understanding of what money is, what coins are, what value really means in the deepest and most absolute sense of the word, and to understand why this coin commands this price, why this specific 1981 D Washington quarter stands above every other coin we've discussed today, we need to go back to Denver in 1981, a year that was in many ways a turning point for America. Ronald Reagan had just been inaugurated as the 40th president following a landslide victory. The country was emerging from the stagflation of the 1970s with a new sense of purpose and direction, and the Denver Mint, true to its character, was deep in the business of producing the coins that would fuel American commerce through this new era. And it was in that context, in that particular moment of American history, that the Denver Mint produced what may be the single most extraordinary error coin in the history of the Washington Quarter series, a coin so fundamentally, so completely impossible by every standard of normal production that its existence challenges our understanding of how the minting process works, and the story of what makes this coin so extraordinary begins with the planchet, the metal blank on which the coin design is struck, Because in 1981 the Denver Mint was working with the copper-nickel-clad composition that had been standard for quarters since 1965, but at some point in the production run, through a sequence of events that may never be fully reconstructed, a planchet found its way into the striking chamber that was not copper-nickel-clad at all, but instead appears to be composed of a silver-bearing alloy more consistent with pre-1965 quarter composition than anything that should have been present in a 1981 Denver Mint facility, and the implications of that are staggering because it means that somehow, impossibly, a blank that should not have existed in that facility in that year made its way into the production stream and was struck with 1981 D-quarter dies, creating a coin that is simultaneously a product of the modern era and a ghost of the silver coinage that America abandoned 16 years earlier. And if that were the only error present on this coin, it would already be extraordinary, it would already be worth millions, it would already be the subject of hushed, reverent conversations among the most serious collectors in the world. But the 1981 D Washington quarter doesn't stop there, because layered on top of the impossible planchet composition is a die error of the most dramatic kind, what appears to be a rotated die error of significant degree, where the reverse die was not properly aligned with the obverse die during the striking process, resulting in a coin where the reverse design is rotated relative to the obverse by an angle that makes the misalignment immediately visible to the naked eye even before magnification is applied. And in the world of error coins, a significant die rotation is already a major finding. It's already the kind of thing that puts a coin in a different category entirely, but when you combine it with a wrong planchet strike that introduces a silver-bearing composition into a coin that should be copper-nickel-clad, you've created something that has no precedent, something that the grading services and the auction houses and the most experienced numismatists in the world struggle to fully categorize because it doesn't fit into any existing box, and things that don't fit into boxes, things that are truly one of a kind, truly without peer or precedent, are the things that the market values most aggressively, most passionately, most without ceiling or limit, and $137 million is the figure that emerges from that passion, from that recognition that this coin is not just rare but unique, not just valuable but irreplaceable, not just a coin but an artifact that encapsulates a specific moment in American manufacturing history that can never be reproduced or replicated. Now I want to talk about the physical experience of holding a coin like this, because numbers alone don't do justice to what it would feel like to have this 1981 D quarter in your hand, to turn it over and see that rotated reverse, to weigh it on a precision scale and watch the number come in wrong, to hold it to the light and see the surface quality of a planchet that shouldn't exist in 1981, to feel the edges and notice that something is different, something is fundamentally, irreversibly different about this coin, compared to every other quarter you have ever touched, and that difference, that tactile, visual, measurable difference, is what separates a coin worth 25 cents from a coin worth $137 million. And it's a difference that is discoverable, it's a difference that you could find, that anyone could find, if they were looking carefully enough, if they had the knowledge and the tools and the patience to examine their coins rather than simply spend them. And that is the ultimate message of this entire video, the 1989 P quarter at 113 million, the 1989 D at 120 million, the 1988 P at 127 million, and now the 1981 D at 137 million. All of these coins were struck at American mints. All of them were intended for ordinary circulation. All of them passed through the hands of ordinary people on their way to becoming extraordinary treasures, and somewhere, in some collection, in some jar, in some forgotten corner of someone's life, there may be coins like these waiting to be found, waiting to be recognized, waiting to transform someone's life in an instant, in a single moment of numismatic recognition that changes everything that comes after it. And that is why we do this, that is why this channel exists, that is why you are here watching and listening and learning, because knowledge is the key, knowledge is what turns a quarter into $137 million, and the more you know, the better you look, and the better you look, the luckier you get, and with the 1981 D Washington quarter we have reached the summit of today's extraordinary journey. A coin that stands as the ultimate proof that America's pocket change has always been hiding secrets, has always been carrying within its ordinary appearance the potential for extraordinary value, has always been waiting for the right person to look closely enough and see what's really there. So go check your coins, go examine your collections, go dig out those old jars and rolls and folders, and look at every single Washington quarter you can find, because you never know, you genuinely, honestly, thrillingly never know what might be hiding in plain sight. And if you found this video valuable, if your mind is racing right now with possibilities and excitement, Please share it with someone who loves coins or history or the idea that fortune can be hiding in the most ordinary places. Subscribe to Coinexa USA for more incredible coin discoveries like these. And remember, the most valuable thing you can ever have is the knowledge to recognize what others have overlooked.